Welcome back, Scorpio. Let's take a look at your zodiac sign and what I see coming through for you. Well, it has been an intense few months, and we are looking at the July 2023 forecast for you, Scorpio. We will first give you an overview of what I see in the big trends coming through and what potentially we may be dealing with, especially as we do transition further into this update for you. We will also cover how these transits are going to impact you, where they're hitting, and then into your romance, career, wealth, health, and any tips I have for you. So let's first take a look at the 5 big trends. Number 1 is we do have a full moon in Capricorn on the 3rd of July. This also in the mix with Pluto having transitioned back into the house of Capricorn may be quite heavy. Also, we are having a new moon in Cancer on the 17th of July. Venus in Leo will move retrograde from the 23rd, and North Node will finally shift out of the house of Taurus and Scorpio. So some success can be coming from the South Node there, and definitely some big changes, especially with that Capricorn moon. And then it will be transitioning into the house of Aries and Libra. Very interesting times. To aid this situation, we are having Chiron shifting retrograde in the house of Aries, and it has been sitting there a lot longer than usual. Generally, because the first house, we tend to have a lot more work. Don't worry if you don't understand what these things mean. I'm going to dive deeper into it to give you some context so you can actually navigate these a lot better. So first of all, how will this full moon play out for you? I would say, especially because it can be to do with hierarchy. Moon again can relate to family and home. I don't know why I'm getting this vibe, especially psychically, especially because we do have both moons, both the moon in Capricorn and then the moon in Cancer. It's really the axis of each other. It's acting like a you versus me. It's taking us back to 2020. Pluto also is making its, I could say, moving back from last month out of Aquarius back into Capricorn again. It's doing its wrap up cycle, and it is at the critical degree. So there can be intensity there. It can also benefit us because it is directly in a retrograde. So being vigilant, it can be linking to hierarchy, our traditions, can be something collectively to do with government and, our homes, especially because we do currently have Juno in the house of Cancer. Now, for this moon, this does connect to your 3rd house. So you may be finding that you're reviewing a contract. There can be something to do with a vehicle. Again, a slight tendency, there is a likelihood of repairs, and that's because Pluto currently is retrograde. This could be white goods, fridges, vehicles. This could be a transition of having a vehicle, selling, buying. Again, because Venus will be in shadow, really review those contracts, really make sure. You also could have some information coming through. This could be some sense of documentation, but it's going to be a cleaning up. It could be a clearing of the air. It could be a very deep emotional conversation. This also could link to your own inner emotions. Of the conversation pieces we have towards ourselves, self-talk, but very separately, this could be a document that relates to family and home, maybe even signing a lease or, looking at home-related dynamics, as we do directly. And it could also be relating to your career. So again, it's writing, it's communicating, it's some sense of maybe routine that you're going to be wrapping up as well. Now, as we move to the new moon in Cancer on the 17th of July, this for you at an individual level does link to your 9th house. Now, this can be anything to travel, advertising, journalism, upskilling, training. You could be going into new training. You could be training individuals around home as well and family. This can be something to do with a sibling. So you may have some changes happening with sibling at that time. It is a new chapter. I do really predict this is going to be quite an intense month. Although we did pick May as the heavy month during the year, I do really spiritually feel, because we do have the North Node moving into Aries, the retrograde won't happen right away with Chiron. Chiron's going to kind of give us a bit of a hand to have the courage to have these big changes. And, you know, wherever Chiron is transitioning, especially relating to our charts, what we can particularly find is there's a tad of adversity there. It's like feeling out of our depth, or we have some wounds. Now, this moon in Cancer, as mentioned, ninth house, siblings, travel, looking at holidays. This could be education, upskilling, philosophies. You also can be into occult wisdom and looking at astrology or looking at tarot, very ninth house. So it can be a really great time to recharge, have spiritual baths. I would really say prior to the new moon, you may feel like you want to get your house in order. I mean, it also can be more playful, but not necessarily is going to feel like that right away. Be aware of your emotions, you know, really drinking fluid, having the home cleared, using crystals to support yourself through that. But it does link to your ninth house. And this also could be, to do with the contract. Ninth house can also be, again, I can't advise you legally, but it can be in astrology litigation. So gauge it as you will, or feel free to book a private reading with all the information below. Now, with Venus, Venus has been sitting in the house of Leo since last month. I tend to find in transits, we tend to have this vibration kind of coming through the month before. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you were really reviewing your values. You know, the do's and don'ts with Venus retrograde, which is occurring on the 23rd, and it's going to sit there in its retrograde until September the 4th. So could we say it's a long transit, tedious to navigate, necessary nevertheless? Jupiter also can be expanding these horizons, bringing out situations to do with marriages, contracts, partnerships. But for each of us, it also does land in a very separate area of our chart. Yours links to your 10th house. Now, it won't go after it goes direct. It's going to remain sitting in Leo for us to do the quality assurance of that and tidy up shop until October the 8th, where it does transition into the next zodiac sign. We'll touch base with that a bit later on in the piece. Now, with the 10th house, this can be, it's purpose. It can be purpose. It can be identity. It can be career. Purpose, more someone a sense of, okay, what are my goals? What am I doing in the circumstance? Where am I going from here? When it comes to your value systems, you can be reviewing those things. If it is a career-based situation in the retrograde, you may reflect upon your employment sector. So it can be that you're sitting there and you go, okay, is the buck worth the grind? Do I value this? You could be going through negotiations. If you can delay making decisions in this area, it is probably best to wait for it to move direct. And even after it does move shadow direct on the 4th, we can have easy 2 weeks of a bit of a lag, but things can be a bit more clearer around that time. So you will see the good, the bad, and the ugly through the retrograde in making a decision. It also can be where we look back to our creativity. So not necessarily is this a bad thing. It is more we are going through an evolution in this area. It's like a renovation. We'll look at it as a renovation and a deconstruction and a renovation. Now, this also can be connections that we do have in the workplace and how we value it, or how even our friendship groups directly value us within the workplace. For some of you, that can be something that you're reviewing and looking over. What are the good things? What are the bad things? Can we work together? In a business also, you can find that you are reviewing the face of the business, the products that you're providing, which we will go later on into your career sector further into the piece. Regardless, the do's and don'ts of Venus retrograde, coupled or single, would be we can have a lot of situations cropping up from the past. We can be re-looking at any connection, be it it's a physical contract, a romantic connection, or a person from the past, and or our psychology surrounding connections. This will also link to money, our style. Not a good time to do anything permanent. It's more experimental. It's like, what works? What do I feel? So would I cut all my hair off at this point during a Venus retrograde? A lot of people I do find, especially with my sister, being that she is the Leo, I always know she's going for the scissors. I always know she's going to color it, and I give her the prompts, relating to the transits. She goes, oops, I did it again. So experimentation, we can tend to have regrets. That can come anything down to things like plastic surgery at a more permanent level. Again, this is not medical advice. This is example pieces of how these things can play out. So the outcome won't be maybe liked on the opposite side of that. So you tend to use this portal as an experimentation, a revisit to these circumstances over doing something more permanent, okay? So it can be trying wigs, non-permanent colors, changing of style with your clothing. Don't throw everything out. Wait till you sit with it, put it to the side, and then make that decision as it moves direct. Within a romantic connection, can you deal with people from the past? Yes, you can. And it is a review. If you are meeting new people, how do you deal with it? You need to be of the understanding of having less attachment. So it's about, again, taking things slow, investigating whether you're on the same page, because 9 times out of 10, we can have people from the past come back. If that person effectively has closure with that, it won't be an issue. But if they do, we can be jumping into things with unseen circumstances coming in the surroundings. So really taking it slow, which we always should be doing going into any contract or partnership, and really assessing what we're physically looking at. Mars is in the house of Leo as we're in July. However, it is moving into the house of Virgo from the 10th. Now, at this time, initially you're going to be very busy in your 10th house. So it's like, what do I want to be? Where do I want to go? How do I feel? Career. You can have a lot of energy. There also can be conflict in that area too, because both Venus and Mars is in the same location. Once we hit the 10th, this is coming down to your 11th house. And again, you can be going into a higher tier level. There can be disputes with management depending on what is going on. You also may be pouring a lot of energy and critiquing some of your dreams. Try to not get critical on yourself, which would more be, you're going to find if you can stop before you react, it's going to be more successful. Use the logical mind. You can be quick-witted. You also can have some issues with friends. Try to not be critical on yourself or others during this transit. It is Mars. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can be quite a positive thing. It's about really reviewing those circumstances and looking at it. But you will want evidence-based. You will be questioning, okay, what is the validity of this situation? What is the basis of this circumstance? You can be requiring a more logical mind to view these circumstances. The other thing is wealth, okay? Really checking what you're doing, especially because it's going to be a Venus retrograde, and Mars can be our emotions. We have an emotional attachment. We're emotional buying, and really doing a budget. Virgo can help us do that. You also, for some of you, could be joining gyms. Now, the one piece of advice I would give you would be do stretches. Later in the month, we're having Aries and Chiron move retrograde. And what you can find is you can have more, strains, sprains, accident prone, especially because the North Node is moving into Aries. And so it's Mars, and it's move. So yes, there is a possibility for some of you, as mentioned, you can be joining gyms. But this also can help with money and creating it. It can also cause conflict, fights, disputes. So go into it with logic. Do the think before you speak, do the investigation. You can be quite quick-witted, and you can have some really grand ideas if you can slow down enough. Now, this also can be a time where you take on a higher role, or have to deal with a dispute and look at something very logically. North Node shifts. Now, as mentioned, it does move by the 12th. So we will find that where we had the axis of Taurus and Scorpio, those things for you at a personal level, because that becomes your first house. Your needs might have been on the back burner, or maybe you were really focusing quite heavy on your 7th house, which is marriages, contracts, partnerships. Currently, Jupiter's there. This is going to be like a double whammy for you because it can be Jupiter is expanding the circumstances in your marriages, contracts, partnership sector. But because it's coming out of the South Node, and we did previously have an eclipse, there is a potential that it's going to heighten these dynamics during the Venus retrograde. If there are a lot of problems, it can expand it. However, it also can mean you are looking back into yourself and going, okay, where now do I want to go? What do I want to do? And because it's almost like it's letting you out of the South Node and it's releasing you, you're going to have a bit more opportunities. It's going to feel a bit lighter for you in that area. Now, with Aries, for this, the North Node being in Aries, again, fitness can come up. You also can be looking at habits, patterns, routines. You are going to, over the next 18 months, learn a lot about structure. This can be the confidence. This can also be facing our shadows of, okay, if I'm wanting to be successful with a job or a career or a routine, I found when I was experiencing the 6th house, it made me realize that organization is the key. I'm an absolute organization freak now, and I know it's the only way that I can actually be quite systematic and get things done, especially working on various platforms. I also did find when I had a 6th house placement transit, what I did, and Jupiter was transiting there for me, is that it is the house where we can get unwell. So paying attention to things, it's there for about 18 months. It can be where you exercise because it's Mars. What it can be is you choose to join a gym. It can also be that you are going to be very busy. But it's almost like a quick burn energy for 18 months, putting a lot of effort in. And by the end of that, not 2 months, 2 years, roughly, 18 months, by the end of that transit, what you would have achieved is a lot of success. But it's almost like you're feeling psychologically you need to get into a routine to achieve some of your personal targets. And where you feel out of your depth, it's going to get you into a physical routine in your life. So that can be your day-to-day tasks. It can be bad habits we're looking at, emotionally, physically, psychologically, but it's very structured. This also can link to pets. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of you get pets. You may need to, for those of you that do have pets, with hard-hitting transits and eclipses, care for your pets more so over the next 18 months because it is your 6th house. But it is common that we do have, say if it's an older pet and it has ailments, we need to care for them more, so be aware of it. But you also need to care for your wellness and that dynamic, very organized, and it is going to benefit you. There is a reason, but it can tend to show us where what it did show me was where I was maybe putting my energy into other locations, and I would have had more organization if I focused on myself. So it did shift me into self-focus and organization. And then, time management was a huge thing as well. Now, the South Node in Libra, what you are moving away from, and it's generally when we say the South Node, I feel that for many of you, it's like, the 12th house can be a very unique place. The 12th house can be our subconscious mind, meditation, gurus, your dreams. Now, and it's almost like, okay, you've thought the dream. In order to have this brand new chapter, there's something you need to do. And so you're doing something in a different way. So this will be in the back burner. These can be old situations, having to jump in the deep end, having to get quite structured and into a routine. This also can be mindset. If there are any psychological blockages, again, this is not medical advice. These are theories of the way it can play out. It could be going to coaching. Looking for a guru to help you with the blockage so that you can overcome these beliefs that you can't have new beginnings for some of you. But particularly, it could directly be a dream. And it's like, in order to get that dream, I know what I need to do. I need to get structured. And then after the 18 months, you're actually going to get the benefits of that dream in the 12th house. I hope that lands. We can go into it in deeper context if you do want a private booking, depending on where that directly does fit in your personal chart. Aries and Chiron then will retrograde on the 23rd. So we have the North Node moving from about the 12th. we then have, which is Aries. Okay, so this is planet of war, but it's Mars, but it's first house, it's personal. Then we have Chiron on the 23rd. So I would say between the 12th and the 23rd, there could be a little bit of anxiousness, so maybe feeling out of our depth. And those same subjects towards your wellness. I do tend to find when we have Chiron retrograde, we need to care for wellness more so. So it's eating healthy. With all the Aries energy, I would, checking use by dates with Venus retrograde, making sure we're putting healthy food into our body, clean the surfaces, keep all the area clean because it is Venus, which can be food. Anything you feel that's off, getting it checked. Eating food groups to boost your immunity. It will be retrograde for a while. So especially if you're joining the gym with the 11th house with Mars moving into Virgo, being aware of it, being careful with excess salt as well, because there can be inflammation also that occurs with those placements. But definitely stretching, not going to extremes. Would I, during Venus retrograde, go skydiving? I wouldn't, because Venus is retrograde. Okay, so waiting till it goes direct, because there can be cross wires, mishaps. Things can cost more because it's retrograde. Nevertheless, you can be having a bit more tools with this position to really have some breakthroughs. So the good thing about the retrograde is we're able to retrieve some of the reasons why we have a spiritual blockage to aid us to move forward. Now, let's take a look at your romance house and what I see coming through for you. Number one, I would say, especially because Jupiter's there, in general, this can be quite positive. However, we do have a Venus retrograde occurring, and it is going to be between, as mentioned above, for your zodiac sign. It is going to be between the 23rd. We're already getting the shadow at the beginning of the month. So blast from the past, reviewing for those of you in a current relationship, and it's going to be there till the 4th of September. So navigating romance over the next few months can be on the ups and downs, but if you're aware, cross wires can happen, misunderstandings. We can feel wounded. Aries and Chiron going retrograde is going to help us deal with that. If you are in a really toxic relationship, this can be a time where you say, or come to a consensus that you have to go your separate ways. But the retrograde can help you actually repair the ship, okay? The other way this can happen, and Jupiter generally brings positive. However, if you're in a very toxic situation, it's going to expand it because that's Jupiter's job. It's like, right, we're trying to liberate you in life. We're trying to bring these things to your attention. And so the old saying is, it's hard to soar like an eagle when you're surrounded by turkeys. And I do have Turkish in my DNA. So, I comically say that quite loosely, no offense intended. But spiritually, what you'll find is it can expand it because Jupiter is the planet of expansion. You're also going to find, not Pluto, Jupiter. So this can be possible engagements, possible marriages, going through divorces if you feel it's not right. Venus also is going to show you, and especially because the nodes are shifting, I do really psychically feel for you, is that many of you are going to go, okay, what do I want in this? It's not just about another person, be it as a person from the past or a current energy you're with. This is about me. What am I wanting out of a relationship? What do I feel it looks like? And over the last few years, you may have really found, especially because we had Uranus sitting in the house of Taurus, we were having squares, we were having difficult aspects. There were difficulties in that relationship sector with the North Node and Taurus. So this can be easing, especially now because Jupiter is giving it some little sugar dust. It's giving it some blessings. But again, we are in a Venus retrograde. There is possibilities of people coming back from the past. There is possibilities of romantic liaisons at work. You will be reassessing this during this time. The other thing I can say is that contracts also will be reassessed. There also could be some travel that some of you do go on. This can be a planned holiday, a romantic holiday. Yeah, and deep conversations about the past. And I do feel, especially for those of you, and I have been saying this since last month, Pluto ingressing back into Capricorn, because it is such a long transit, that particular one. Not only is Venus bringing situations, people, places, and things, but Pluto is as well. So Pluto and Venus are doing the same thing. So there is like 100% more likelihood of old situations coming back for you to decide if you want to reconnect with that. So your career zone also is going through an overhaul. And like I said, a lot of you guys, because your position was in the South Node from the 12th, that's set to change. I do feel many of you are going to be quite goal orientated. Some of you can be going on the up and up. Some of you, if you found some of your stress levels were really impacting you, you can be re-looking at the scales and going, okay, is this for me? Is this not? I also feel you could be getting into more of a stricter routine with yourself. If you feel that the career sector isn't really harmonized or balanced, is it about organization, or is it about something that you feel you're not connected to? Generally speaking, the retrogrades aren't the best time to sign contracts. I would say if you had to, the first 2 weeks, other than that, you'd probably best to wait until September if you possibly could. Although I have found this year, especially, a lot of things I've directly done during retrogrades. Even if I do recommend, look, I wouldn't do this or that during a retrograde. I've even done some things during an eclipse, which again, I do tend to say, and it's just the way the cookie crumbles. So if you have to, you have to, but be aware you could be going back over old ground, feeling that you're going backwards to go forwards, and really summing it up as we move direct. But sometimes it's just the way it goes. I do particularly feel some of you do have a possibility of being intelligent. If you are managing staff, I would say, especially with this Virgo placement and the 11th house and Mars transiting in this location, you will be very busy. You do have a capacity to earn a lot of money, but there also could be an attitude that can come through that can be quite blunt, quite critical. And I think if we actually pause mid-month, as we do have Mars move into Virgo, it's going to age you. I also feel Mercury moving into that zone by the 28th. If you have any tidying up or clearing up and paperwork, you're definitely going to get on top of it there. This also can be conversations at work and negotiations. Definitely feel that you can have a more logical eye. Now, I do particularly feel with this placement, especially if you are just going, okay, you just need to get out of my way so I can get this done. My best advice for that position and placement, especially because I do coaching, one thing I would say is, because you have that quality assurance and that leadership, sometimes we end up doing everything and it's not manageable. So my one piece of key advice for you would be is get somebody, if you are directly working with a group or you are a manager or you are working in a group related dynamic, and train one individual and get them to train another. Otherwise, it's just going to repeat like that permanently, because you do have that logical mind. You are able to break it down and, having a system, but this can be a time in which you can be quite busy. Let me put it that way. Definite possibilities of wealth coming on the up and up. I would say emotional spending is a potential. I feel it's more mid-month. I do also feel you have big goals. This can be getting a loan. This can be if you're dealing with any disputes relating to wages, income. That is also possible. And again, because Venus is retrograde, is it the best time to, to go to extremes? No, I would do things in moderation. But again, keep the emotion there. You could have some car repairs coming up for some of you. I do particularly feel, especially in the first 2 weeks, there is the possibility of that. So this could have already happened, especially last month, I would say from the 11th onwards. More than likely, though, it could be signing of a new contract, purchasing. This could be, again, signing a contract for a home or reviewing directly what you're owning. But there could be a little bit of money going out, but it's going to give you this forward motion to move forward and proceed. The other area I do think particularly is going to bring you some wealth can be through your career sector. Although during the retrograde, there can be a delay in that. So for some of you, if there is a pay rise, I do feel that negotiation is going to require logical energy. I also feel by the 28th, it could be a little bit more clear about where that stands, but you do have some big plans. Also keeping your wellness in check so that you can maintain the status quo, especially where it comes to your social endeavors. Some of you are joining gyms also, so money can be going to that location for fitness. And there also could be a large group gathering. Now, health. Like I said, joining gyms, possibility. This also can be a time when it is coming to your attention that routine is necessary. Really good. I would probably start from the beginning of the month, mindfulness. I would go into getting into your core. And I have been actually doing some coaching in my membership, which is Mind, Body, Soul. That's online at YILDIZ Readings 5D on YouTube. And we are doing those sessions during Venus retrograde. So, really mindfulness, getting into your vortex. And instead of allowing the fear from the past to overconsume you, getting very clear about what your goals are so that you can stay in alignment. A lot of us can get dehydrated, particularly because we do have Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Pisces, and this for you does link to your 5th house. So it can ease up in that area. The retrograde not necessarily is a bad thing. It can be to do with your social life. It can be to do with your emotions. It can be your friendship groups. It can also be what you do for leisure. And again, it's very creative. So you have a lot of creativity. On a social setting, I do tend to find with this placement, there is a risk of overindulging, but that's more so from a drinking or using pacifiers. You can have nightmares as well with the retrograde and with Neptune there, because it is very 12th house, but on top of it, it's sitting in your 5th house. So we can, due to emotions, emotional eat. I can say that with this position. It is retrograde for a bit. Really getting to this point where you are maybe coming into a mindfulness, blocking out the white noise, maybe listening to a positivity track on YouTube, or via, a podcast, wherever you directly are listening from. And then you're setting the tone for your day. This month also would be very good for exercise. And that's just to keep stress levels down. It's not to get perfectly stunning. It's just, look, we're doing this for, the happy endorphins in the brain. Resting as well, being very organized. My biggest tip for you would be organized, and anything you feel is off to go and get it checked, because you do have the 6th house. Crystals that could support you. Let me think. Let's look at your energy. Okay, I would say rose quartz. I would definitely say your third eye also. Some of you can experience some third eye. This can be needing to check your eyes, glasses. Again, because it is a feminine transit, it's Taurus and it's Venus. Especially for feminines, we can find that we're needing to look after our base chakra, sacral chakra. So citrine also can actually support you, especially if you're having any anxiety and trying to have that confidence and courage. Again, if you do want to follow us, please come through. Very separately, I will see you next month for the update. If you do want that added support, you can come through to YouTube or my website. All information is directly below. Have a great month, and I wish you the very best.